And we're live. Hi, everybody. Charles Hoskinson here, broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado, sometimes Montana. One of the best parts of my job, besides the fact that I get to wear the John Lennon glasses from time to time, is when people send me gifts or letters or well wish and encouragement. And whenever they do, I always show them off. And I've gotten a contender for one of the coolest gifts of the year. I've gotten a lot, from a Mongolian city medal to a letter from Einstein, but I'm a little bit of a cowboy at heart, so this one's pretty special too. So it's a belt buckle. Look at that. Let me bring it close to the camera so you guys can see it. And that right there says Daedalus, Shelley, Ouroboros. It's got the Ouroboros snake. You see the front and the back. It's a silver buckle. There's an old cowboy tradition. You never buy your own buckles. You either get them as a gift or you win them. I'm not a cowboy. I've met a lot of cowboys in my life, and they'd kick my ass if I call myself one. But I sure do love going to the rodeos, and I sure do love dressing up like one from time to time. And I wear boots every day. So it means a lot to me to get something like this, especially given that it's custom made. It's got the Cardano logo on it. It's got the Ada logo. It's got the Daedalus logo. I just want to thank the fan that made this. It means a lot to me. It's a very, very special gift, and it's a very unique gift, and it's definitely a conversation starter. And I tell you what, I got a lot of friends in the rodeo as well. So what I might be able to do depends on maybe not this year, but next year, certainly for Frontier Days, is I'll see if I can get it on a champion bull rider. So not only are we going to win in the markets, we're going to win in the rodeos too. So thank you so much for that. That is a real cool thing. Okay. So I love doing AMAs. You guys are the best community ever. It's just so much fun talking to you. It's so much fun getting your questions. And I always think it'll be like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. We'll have some fun and move on. And then it ends up 2 hours because I just always get the best questions. It's great. Brief update. We first off hit our deadline. We were supposed to release something today. We did. First time ever we've connected all the wallet backend components to Shelley node. And now it's just waiting for next week for all the Daedalus components to turn on for the end-to-end test for balance check. So that and the card fork combinator are the last two major milestones before we launch all the Shelley mainnet stuff. And then we're all just waiting for hard fork. So based on the test next week, we'll either be launching that mainnet candidate on the 30th or July 7th. It's one of those, depending on whether the weather's good or not, type of deals. So we'll see what happens. Personally, I think the 30th is a go, but we'll find out formally next week. And it's really exciting to actually see the balance check come actually happen. It's one thing to talk about Shelley. It's one thing to talk about shipping this, but 5 years of amazing work, 5 years, and we're finally here. Guys, this lived on a whiteboard a long time ago. It lived in a notebook a long time ago. It was conversation after conversation, and there was a lot of things that could have come along that could have broken it. There were a lot of hard times, a lot of missteps, a lot of protocol failures, design failures, staffing changes that had to be made. We were dug in on certain ways we shouldn't have been. We were not as resilient as we needed to be. But despite all that, we found a way to make it happen. And in just 2 short weeks, it's either that week or the following week, it's out. There's really never going to be a moment in my life that's as special as that. And I'm glad I get to share it with everybody. I really do. People, they graduate from medical school or they get a PhD or they solve a big math problem or something like that. And that's a personal victory. And as great as it may be, it's incomparable in magnitude to when you get to celebrate with an entire community of people, tens of thousands of people all across the world, different languages, different cultures, but one big family. And I'm just blown away by how far we've all gone, whether it be a belt buckle or a letter from Einstein or some recipes for cookies. It could be a letter written on a typewriter. Doesn't really matter. Everybody does their part and everybody shows their support. And it's amazing to see just how this has brought so many people together over all the years. I can't tell you how many fathers and mothers have emailed me and said, I wasn't really connecting with my kids, but we decided to do a stake pool together, or we decided to do something with Cardano together, and we actually can relate and do something there. We watch your AMAs, or we got a Raspberry Pi. We somehow found a way to get the ITM working on it. That's pretty special, all things considered, and it means the world to me. So thank you all for sticking with me. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. So we have some cleanup. There's the ITN, and a lot of people inside my organization are saying we should keep that going. A great community, 19,000 nodes, 1,200 registered stake pools. Why don't we come up with a cool roadmap for it and keep it running? And so I set out on Twitter. I said, hey, if you run a stake pool, what do you think? Should we keep the ITN rolling? Do something else with it? I have a lot of good ideas, a lot of things in the roadmap that we could play around with. It'd be really cool to have an experimental chain and have real economic value. I'm pretty sure I can get Binance to list it. So, if you guys are game, I'm game. Let us know your thoughts. And, I tell you what, as a sign of support, I think rewards are coming to an end here in a few days. I believe the 19th is when the rewards are going to run out. So if you're making blocks beyond that, then there's no more rewards. But if you want the ITN to keep living, keep mining, keep staking on it, keep that chain alive. And if there's enough community support, I'll definitely consider doing something with it and see if we can get it listed and building something special along with it as kind of an extra gift to all those who stuck with that for 6 months. So the ball's in your court. Let's see what we can do as a community. Legends of Valar. Let's do an update there. Completely unrelated to Cardano. It's a video game I bought. Transactions done. Money sent. IP has been transferred over. I am the proud owner of intellectual property produced in 1992. How about that? And I've actually bought this book from Jeff Howard. It's on designing magic systems. And I thought it was going to be a quick read, but it's a surprisingly disconnected but inspired, brilliant book where things are not written in the way they should be. But nonetheless, it does have quite a bit of interesting stuff inside of it. And I've learned a hell of a lot more about different magic systems than I care to come up with. The Vancian magic system meant nothing to me about a week ago, and now I know a lot about these types of systems. So progress is definitely being made there, and I'm actually looking for some candidate sites to put a game development studio. So currently the candidates are Colorado, Wyoming, Rwanda, and perhaps a place in Asia. Mongolia would be my choice. So I'll take a look at the merits of all these different places. How I'm going to set it up is we'll do a modified Haskell training course. Normally what we do is we send Lars and family out with Polina and others, and they go train 20, 30 people to program in Haskell, and then we hire the good ones and we let the rest go. Well, we'll probably do something like that, but instead of hiring them to be Cardano developers, I'll train them after they graduate with an additional 6 to 9 months of training on things like Unity and Godot and game development. And the really, really good ones I'll keep on board and then open up a studio. So we'll see where we get to do that. I'll let you guys know what the selection process is going to look like. And if you think of an alternative jurisdiction that is superior to either Colorado, Wyoming, Mongolia, or Rwanda, do let me know. And I always said I'll occasionally keep you in the loop with Legends of Valor. And I'm having a surprising amount of fun on that. We are looking heavily into Goguen. We are looking heavily into some other things as well. And I have lots to say about Goguen at the virtual summit. Make sure you go to the Cardano Virtual Summit, cardanosummit.iohk.io. That is the tentative website for it. There's already 100 speakers that we have signed up. We have some really good, surprising speakers. More and more are coming on board. Vince Cerf is speaking. Stephen Wolfram is speaking. The last time I checked, 3,300 registered guests. I'm going to go on a giant podcast tour, and hopefully we can get that number over 10,000. That'd be a lot of fun. All across the world. We've sent some invitation letters out to various heads of state. We and some politicians have already signed up. And it's a very diverse crowd, very interesting crowd. I think it's probably the best summit we've ever put on from agenda, and then from content, it'll even be better. And you don't have to pay anything to go, completely free. How about that? Okay, let's get to your questions. Questions. What's your favorite song from Wish You Were Here? The Wish You Were Here. Oh my God, I caught a live AMA. Yes, Aviva, you did. The great Aviva Bulow, a very good old friend of mine from way back in the day. And we knew each other before we were cool. And now she's a big shot over in California. What else we got here? We have 371 people listening live. Kind of a light day. When lambs, little fluffy ones. I ain't have no lambs. Got goats, many goats. Goats will eat the lambs. Come on, what else we got here? Ba-doo. Who's your favorite composer? Classical composer Chopin. And there is just no comparison. Hey, Charles, you're studying artificial fabric technology for a test. What kind of new artificial fabric, spell it right, son? What kind of new artificial fabric would you like to see in the future? Well, it'd be really cool if your fabric had thermochromic properties, so that basically it changes color based on the ambient temperature. So my shirt could be like blue, then red, then yellow. That'd be really cool. In fact, I even once showered in a shower that had thermochromic paint. And so it actually changed color based on the water temperature. That was a lot of fun. Kind of a crazy place. Any fear of the SEC or any of the governments intervening on your projects? Nah, not really. U.S. government and I are tight. I'm not so worried about it. Just be honest, do your job, and have a good relationship with your community and build real value. Then you don't worry about these things. I'd like to make mimetic polyalloys like T1000. Well, yeah, actually, liquid metal does exist. I just read an article about it. Do you like Fado? Who's your favorite Fado singer? No. God, no. Are you still consulting with Polymath? No, I just recently finished that contract, and they're working on Polymesh now. So I hope they actually do some great things with it. It's being built on Parity substrate. And as I am not an expert with that platform, there's really not a lot I can contribute. So I wish him well, and I hope everything works out. When will you have a partnership with SpaceX? Well, you should talk to them. Hi, Charles. How close are the team to agreeing on the K value and the A not value? I selected it on Wednesday, this last week. We have blog posts incoming, so we'll let you know at the summit or close to it. Charles, you once mentioned that you didn't like Ripple hired Ben Losky. Why is Ben bad for the crypto space? Super Nintendo Losky passed BitLicense. He asked the space for some advice, and even I contributed. Everybody gave him some information. And then he took everything that we said, put it in a paper shredder, did the opposite, and destroyed the entire regulated cryptocurrency industry in the state of New York. That's why a lot of exchanges aren't there. It's a lot of very few people have qualified for BitLicense. Basically, they killed the industry. And Losky also comes from the very same group of people that put Ross Ulbricht in prison. Losky comes from the very same group of people that uses the heavy hand of the state to basically arbitrarily punish those who the state disagrees with for financial crimes. And now he's doing what all regulators do, which is after burning the system down, go into private industry and cash out at $600 an hour. So it was a very philosophical thing. It was one of the moves that I thought badly delegitimized Ripple. And I understand why they do it, because they want to go and do an IPO and all that stuff. And, I wish them well. And I like the guys over there, Dave and Chris and so forth. I just think that putting Ben on your board is a sign that you're prepared to compromise when we shouldn't as an industry. We need to transcend. I'm not in the business here to make banks richer. I'm in the business here to put the banks out of business. Question, can you talk more about the Cardano stablecoin? What is the progress? Currently, we are in the exploration phase for it. Bruno Paleo is leading that. He's done 3 major presentations, an enormous amount of research. I think probably the most comprehensive research that's ever been done on stablecoins in our space. He's an incredibly thorough guy, very thorough. So don't for once challenge that. And I really do think that he'll converge with the help of the organization to a great design if we wish to pursue it. So we'll let you guys know, but we haven't committed to it yet. Charles, is the hardware key still in talks for Daedalus wallet? Yep, FIDO compliant. You guys like FIDO? I like FIDO. U2FA for the win. Finally, we can have a proper login. Not like one of those shitty logins, but a hardware login. How about that? Hello from Melbourne, Australia. Well, hiya, mate. That small Australian is terrible. I love that we have people all around the world. It's really cool. What time is it in Australia right now? That was a terrible Australian accent. Yeah, I don't do Australia. I do Scottish. That's a lot better, isn't it? I could do this whole thing in Scottish. And then a real Scotsman will be listening and say, what are you doing? What's wrong with you, Charles? See, I went dry this year, so the Scottish accent also went out the door. Hello from Lagos. I love Nigeria. How's it out there? What's the temperature? Do you like Radiohead? Absolutely. Do you guys ever listen to that remix of Creep that was done for the Social Network trailer? That was really good. Hello from Argentina. I love the Argentina. It's a beautiful place. Alan Verbner is one of my best friends in this space, and I love ATIX. They are just an incredible firm to work with, and they've done some great things. Any update on Africa? Still working in Africa. John O'Connor is doing some good things. We'll have a whole Africa presentation at the summit where we'll have the gals come out and talk about some of the projects we've done. We are right now in a very competitive bid for a voucher program in Ethiopia. We're still in a feasibility study for a payment system in Addis as well. And then there's a lot of other little things we got in the fire. So John O'Connor will give you guys an update. Hello from Italy. Ciao, Italia. Come sta? Bene? Così così? Abbastanza bene? Male? Mi dispiace. Molto triste. Backing Bill Gates, really? Look, guys, all I know is what I see and do. We rub shoulders with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in Africa, like the Agricultural Transformation Agency and so forth. They've been nothing but kind with us, and the things we talk about are how to help people, and they're legitimate and genuine in the work that they do. As for all of this like mass depopulation stuff, okay, I've heard the same things you guys have had, but all I can do is judge a man by the things that he does and the things that I see. And the places where we tend to run into their people are productive, positive, and we never really have a question about how do we sterilize people. We have a question about how we save lives. That's my personal experience being physically in Africa, meeting with their people. Take it or leave it. People say all kinds of horrible things about me. But I will say this, he's not a real person in that he portrays himself different from who he actually is. And you can detect that. And there's plenty of people in public life who do that, from Bill Clinton to the Obamas to other people. And when there's a gap between how you portray yourself and who you actually are, it is an invitation for people to define you positively or negatively. So it's best to just be yourself, not who you think people should be or want you to be. Otherwise, you will inevitably end up having a lot of people say horrible things about you. Mark Zuckerberg is probably the greatest example of that. Dude looks like an android. I think he had a focus group tell him how to drink water. I'm glad that Charles's accents don't reflect his technical prowess. I am very glad about that too, nor my love life. uh, Hi from Norway. I hope we can start traveling again soon. Absolutely. I'd love to come. I'm going to do a pilgrimage there. Still have a lot of family members there, the Steen family. When are you coming to Greece for holidays? I have people in Greece. We have an office in Athens. Lamborghini or Ferrari? As I have a Lamborghini. I wouldn't mind a Ferrari 488. That's a nice car. It has cup holders. Lambo doesn't. Putin walk. Charles, will there be any point of smart contracts in Cardano without GCJS? Well, there's plenty of point for that. Try again. Give me something. The man, the myth, the legend. No, so legendary. Talk to my mom about that. She'll tell you I'm not. Remember, no matter how famous or great the person is, they got a mama. And to their mama, they're not as famous. Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk? Elon Musk. Zuck is really not much older than me. When will we be able to play the new Legends of Valor? I have to create it first, children. It's like George Washington during the Revolutionary War. You know, he kept working on Mount Vernon. He would be sending these exhaustive letters telling his cousin to like change a field or clean up a silo or something like that. Josh, I got a Huracan LP 610 2017 Spider. Who will do the soundtrack for Legends of Valar? I was thinking of doing a hybridized soundtrack for it where we would do somebody like Ramin Djawadi or Max Richter, or actually have them collaborate together. I also have a connection to Trent Reznor, and he did some great work with Atticus Ross. So it'd be super cool to see if we can convince Trent to do something with Ramin Djawadi. Now, Ramin is one of those guys whose name, just you just don't know, but you know his work so well. And I'll sing it for you. Dun dun da da dun dun da da dun dun. Game of Thrones. He did the Game of Thrones soundtrack. He did the Westworld soundtrack, and many of these other HBO shows. So Robin's great in that, and he's done a few game soundtracks as well. Bear McCready is another one. He did the God of War soundtrack for the latest God of War. Wonderful stuff. Why does Molten Tar Monster number 3 hate Ada? Remember the proper name. Because the man hates himself. And if you hate yourself, you cannot love anything. Fasting anytime soon? I just finished a 2-day fast. Carlito's Way. When Shelley delay? No delay. So am I going to get an apology, Carlito, when we ship Shelley? Do that hard fork? Or are you going to go get on your hands and knees and beg for forgiveness? Or are you going to find something else to troll about? Legitimately asking. You seem to ask in every one of our things. What else we got here? Come on, kids. Did Molten Tar Monster number 1 admit to the Bitcoin Mt. Gox hack? I think he accidentally did. Craig Wright is a special flower, and I've run into him 3 times in my career. He belies reason in words, and why Bitcoin SV is a real community is beyond me. It's a cult. It's a death cult, and at some point he'll tell them to take the Kool-Aid. What are the stories behind the painting? Yeah, that's a Waterhouse over there, and that's a Gustav Klimt, and then that is a Jean-Leon Gérôme. The Gérôme is my favorite painting. And I have some of my masks there. I have a lot more in my office as well. I have all the symmetrical, like geometric masks in the office. Charles, you seem to be doubling down on the kids, kitties, and children thing. Yeah, Peter, I do that because it annoys the hell out of some people. And I just love annoying the hell out of some people. We're all kids at heart. Come on now. Have you become so old and callous and decrepit that you cannot find your inner child, sir? Look at me, boy. Do you subscribe to the hollow fractal theory? No, and I have not done enough drugs to understand it. Charles, you look younger. Every time I shave my beard, I do. I lose about 10 years. Oh, that coffee's fucking good. Is Shelley on schedule? Yes. Do you see a roadblock? Oh, yes, many, but we've gotten through all of them so far. Knock on wood. Is there a God? Yeah, well, if not, we'll invent one. How old are you, Charles? I am 32 years old. Charles, what do you think of the Seattle Autonomous Zone? Okay, this is America. You don't, in America, go and create your own country. You just don't do that. Last time we tried that, it was Civil War. It didn't work out so well for anybody. The Seattle mayor is a coward. The Seattle administration, they're a bunch of cowards. You know, there's a world of difference between peaceful protests and civil disobedience and rioting and extortionary behavior. The people who live in Chaz, who own that property, they're being subjected to basically extortion. They're basically told they have to provide food, money, and other things for these incumbents that have come. And if they don't, then they're assaulted. They can't leave their home. They live in fear. Some of these people have lived there and they're in their 70s and they've lived there their whole life. And they're basically just being subjected to this terrorism. And what is the Seattle government's response? They give them toilets and they feed them. You know what you do? You cut off the power of the water. You build a wall around the whole place. And as they grow tired of it and they leave, you arrest them and you charge them and put them in jail for 10 years. You just don't allow lawlessness like this to persist and propagate. It is the destruction of society. You know, if you have grievances, then solve the fucking problem. Don't be a bunch of goddamn kids running around, setting things on fire, breaking windows. You won't accomplish anything. If these are municipal problems, vote the municipal governments out. You know, it's not that hard. If you're able to organize and get 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 100,000 people and maintain rage, vote. Just do that. Vote out the mayor. Vote out the entire municipal government. Put your own people in. Change the electoral system. You think America is so fundamentally broken, hold a constitutional convention. But don't for once create the ideal society where you don't even know how to farm. Good luck with that. And now you have a warlord running around with guns telling people that the white people have to pay the black people. It's craziness. It's just anarchistic madness of a bunch of shit posting kids. It's like the comments section on the internet came alive and created their own little city. And they're having a lot of fun. And the millions and millions of dollars of damage that they're doing, of course, they won't repay. They won't be held accountable. And then, here's the best part, the greatest irony of Chaz. They had a fire and they couldn't put it out. So they had to call the fire department to come and help them with their little utopia. Again, why is Seattle even playing into it? Just let the fire spread. Let it burn up a bunch of stuff so that they can understand that maybe these public services have a real purpose behind them. There's a world of difference between doing something constructive and something destructive. I get the rage. I get the anger. I've been all throughout Africa. I have seen people who have missing arms and limbs and shrapnel wounds from barrel bombs. And they're basically told that they have to set it aside and get along. Okay? Whatever problems and grievances you have or perceive to have, theirs are far worse. And if they can find a way to build a constructive society without burning things down or resulting in sectarian violence, you can find that same way too. But you see, they're not interested in solving the problem because there's no profit, glory, or political gain in actual solutions. There's profit in division. There's profit and power to be gained in allowing the problem to persist and persist and persist and persist. That's why we never solved the illegal immigration problem in the United States. It's actually not that hard. The left wants to run it to become such a crisis that they can legalize all of the illegal immigrants. And if they think that they do that, they'll get a solid, reliable voting bloc and turn Texas blue. And the right wants cheap labor. So if you keep them in the shadows, the labor is permanently cheap. Both sides have no political incentive to actually work together, create a guest worker program, solve it. Guys, it's the incentives. Here's how you know. Here's how you know that people aren't interested in solving the problem. Okay. If they were really interested in solving the problem, everybody in the political spectrum, right and left in the United States, would be right now talking about changing our voting systems, moving to liquid feedback, moving to contre se counts, board accounts, changing the way we elect our officials, term limits, these types of things. Because if we have a 90+% disapproval rate of Congress, no one likes the recent presidents we've had in the last 30 years, then that's probably a good indicator that the election system is no longer capable of converging to good choices. But we have bipartisan agreement to keep the system as it is, just telling you that if you change the people at the top, somehow it'll all be different. It was no different under Obama, no different under Trump. It'll be no different under Biden. Okay. So unless you change the system, you're not going to have the system give you the intended results. And Chaz will not change the system. It's a propaganda piece being propped up by the government to excuse the broader social situation that we're running in. All right, let's see what we got here. Good night. Prism. Oh, we got a great, beautiful presentation on Prism. You guys are gonna love it. We're doing it in 2 weeks, though. I got to save things for the summit, or else why? Okay, I like the summit. It's nice stuff. Why does IOHK work with Litecoin too? We currently have no relationship with Litecoin, but I'd be happy to work with Charlie and his guys. Come on, give me some good, kids. Hello from Iraq. Please name a book that inspired you. Well, Ron Chernow's Titan really did. Love that book. Why did you delete your LinkedIn? I deleted it because it was of no use to me. I just got spam and recruiters. I'm sorry, I have better things to do than apply for a JavaScript development job here in Colorado. I don't really particularly like LinkedIn. I was kind of hopeful when Microsoft bought it from Reed that they would clean it up, make it a decent social network. But LinkedIn is only useful when you're looking for a job or you want a business network with people. I don't have to do that. I've kind of reached a point in my career and life where people call me. I don't call them. And I don't need to use LinkedIn. I have other people for that. How are the chilies doing? Oh, the chilies are doing great. Oh, I got them right over there. I planted some in the garden over there. I got some jalapenos. I got some super red hots. Unfortunately, super red hots didn't do so well, but the jalapenos did very well. And actually, they survived the hydroponic transplant, which I was surprised. Usually, when you grow something hydroponically and you put it into actual soil, it doesn't really survive as well as you'd hope. But it's doing quite well. Do you work out, exercise? I used to. I got all this fat here. I'm a sexy beast. What else we got here, kids? Come on, give me some good questions. Ada listing on Coinbase. You know better than asking that. You really do. Shame on you. You get to sit in the corner now. I wish I had a corner button. I'll put you in a corner button. Any books you'd recommend on critical thinking? Yes, I will make a book list for that. I know you guys have been asking for it ever since I did the propaganda series. Yes, still look good. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I've had a lot of people tell me that too. I think they're just trying to get my money. Just kidding. Will Cardano ever be listed on NASDAQ? No, because it's not a security. Are you the Stanley Kubrick of crypto? I think so. If I was Stanley Kubrick, I would rebuild Cardano 200 times and then eventually quit the film saying it didn't fit my vision. Although I'd be able to work with Malcolm McDowell. He's a pretty good actor. Do you know what movie he played in with Stanley Kubrick? Do you guys remember? Come on, very famous. Here's a hint. It had Beethoven in it. They played a famous scene with Beethoven. Have you watched Bob Lazar on Joe Rogan? Yes. A Clockwork Orange. Congratulations, Jason. You win the movie A Trivia of the Day. That is correct. Wonderful film. Deeply disturbing, but basically that's like Chaz dialed up to 11, right? Eyes Wide Shut was a different movie. Eyes Wide Shut actually had Tom Cruise and I believe Nicole Kidman. I can't remember. Yeah, I think that's where they met, or that's where they were starting the relationship. That was a great movie. Hello from Sweden. You know, I was just in Stockholm not too long ago. I was training with Jarno for wingsuit training. And I was actually due to go back in March. And then I was going to go over to Amsterdam to train with Wim Hof. Unfortunately, this weird thing called coronavirus just came out of fucking nowhere and ruined all of our travel plans. Favorite Stoic philosopher, Seneca. And Marcus Aurelius has his charm too. Everybody cites Marcus, but Seneca was the one that he read. Kazuha, Japan. No, that's Korea. Yes, Wim Hof. And he plans on visiting Australia. I was in Canberra not too long ago. Charles, what caused you more hair loss? IOHK, ETH, ETC, or your farm? IOHK, I've been here for 60 months. So that certainly caused me quite a bit of hair loss. But as runs the family, guys, I'm going to be totally bald. I'm just going to have to be like Bezos and shave all of it off and take human growth hormone and get all buff and wear those glasses with an explosion behind me. Maybe I'll just, die of neuroendocrine pancreatic cancer like Jobs. Hi, Ethereum co-founder. What's happening with S2 release? Just kidding. Oh, you. Yeah, I love you. You watched that video, didn't you? Yeah, there you go. Charles, have you ever been to New Zealand? Yes, I've seen the kakapos there. I was going to go there on a way to Tonga. Also got canceled. Share your time on Bitcoin education project. I'm getting nostalgic. Unfortunately, that came to a close a long time ago. However, I am planning on doing a refresh of that course at some point. Hey, Charles, are you planning a certification program like the Certified Cardano Professional? Yeah, we've talked with Cardano Foundation about that. It's not a priority today, but it probably will be tomorrow. So, we'll work our way towards that. We're not quite where we need to be. Charles is in good spirits today. Well, yes, of course I am. You got to be happy, kids. You got to be happy. Hello from Portugal. Well, obrigado. I love Portugal. I was just in Porto. I love the vineyards there. God damn it, why am I dry? Can't I become an alcoholic like the rest of you? Woe is me. Are you a Scientologist? Oh, Lord, no, I worship Odin. Norse gods forever. Opinions on VeChain. Well, a lot of VeChain people talk to me. They say stuff. They comment on threads. I've actually never looked into VeChain. I think it's like a supply chain thing. Don't ever do a comb over. No, I'm man enough to shave it. Once I'm past the point of no return, it's bald. I'm going to go chrome dome forever. Hey, Charles, how does delegation incentives change for ADA with the introduction of non-ADA multi-assets potentially used for transaction fees? It doesn't, because you'd still use ADA as the finite resource for selection of the delegates of the stake pools. However, when a person makes a block, because it would contain those transactions that are from non-native assets, then what would occur is that they'd get the assets as transaction fees in addition to the ADA. So making a block would result in an ETF. You'd actually have a portfolio of cryptocurrencies as opposed to just one. How many bales of hay did you produce this season? I'm not sure. I haven't counted them yet. I'll let you know. What do you think of Chainlink? Maybe we should compete with them. You guys want to do that? Want to build our own Chainlink on Cardano that's like so much better? Let me know in the comments. Hail Odin. There we go, finally. Now you're getting why we have all the damn Norse mythology. Can you explain Turing complete, and is it necessary? No, it's not necessary. You can use DSLs that are Turing incomplete if desired, to run smart contracts or special purpose contracts. But Turing completeness is nice because you have a sense of genericism with your system. Now, most of these systems are quasi Turing complete because they're metered. So it almost is there, but not quite there. And basically, the idea is that you can express in your language, you have a sufficient level of expressiveness in your language to model pretty much any type of transaction that you'd like. Now, whether that transaction is cost effective or that transaction is useful for your context is completely contextual to the underlying virtual machine infrastructure that you're using and the computational model that you're using. But in general, it's desirable to have a Turing complete system because you have more flexibility with it. But there's a lot of pitfalls. Like, for example, you cannot get a proof that code will terminate. It's called the halting problem. So what you need to do is use a metering system so you run out of a resource for that. But then in introducing a metering system with your computations, you introduce a great degree of potential complexity in attack vectors, which is why Ethereum has to be retuned over and over again every hard fork, because there's always something that goes wrong. But if you're really interested in Alan Turing's original paper, where he actually uses it to show that the Einstein-Dunks problem is false, then I'd encourage you to read the book Annotated Turing from Charles Petzold. And he does a great job basically breaking down the preliminaries behind Turing's paper and then actually going through the entire paper paragraph by paragraph with annotations explaining what is a Turing machine and why does the proof do what it does. What Turing was trying to do, along with Alonzo Church and Kurt Gödel, and they all did. Church did lambda calculus, and Gödel used recursive functions for this, but they're all isomorphic approaches. But basically, what Turing was trying to do was solve a problem that David Hilbert had presented. So basically, mathematics needs to have four properties for it to be a good system, or at least this was the belief at the turn of the 19th to 20th century. And the International Math Conference in 1900, this was like the big thing they were pushing with Bertrand Russell and Alfred North Whitehead and all these other logicians like Gottlob Frege and so forth. But basically, the concept is that you first would like to have a system that is independent and consistent. So independent meaning that all the axioms of your system, so the things that you assume to be true without proving that they're true, those axioms basically are all necessary and they don't prove each other, meaning that one can be derived from a collection of others. And I mean, this is not obvious, like Euclidean geometry for a long time, people are curious if the parallel postulate was independent or could be derived from other axioms. So people have spent quite a bit of time thinking about that over 2,000 years. Turns out that it is. And then you would like consistency. So you don't want a situation where by assuming two things or more or n things to be true, that the system will be basically violating itself. So something would be both true or false or something because of axioms that you have in the system. Okay, so mathematics has the axioms that we constructed for set theory are mathematicians constructed are sound from the perspective that they're independent, we believe, and consistent. Where you run into some problems is completeness and decidability. So completeness is the property of saying If I have some arbitrary statement that I'd like to derive the truth value of, we call this a WIF, a well-formed formula. So it's some proposition of logical connected things. Then you should be able to find a reduction to that to the axioms of mathematics. So you should be able to say that that WIF is you have enough information in math to prove it. Now, if your system doesn't have enough axioms, meaning there exist statements in the system that can't be proved within the system, it's called an incomplete system. Now, there was a very famous mathematician named Kurt Gödel who, as a graduate student, actually studied this problem. And later in his career, discovered through Gödel's incompleteness theorem that not only is math incomplete, it can never be made complete by the construction of the laws of mathematics. There's this inductive axiom requirement where you can always construct a statement outside of the system as a consequence of the prior axioms that can't be proved with them. You'd always need to add another one. And then by adding it, you can construct another statement. And he uses all these clever ideas like Gödel encodings and so forth to do that. So that was pretty depressing. Like, hey, you can spend your life as a mathematician, but you're working within a fundamentally incomplete system. It's not true for all mathematical systems. Like Hilbert's formalization of geometry is complete. But then the last question is decidability. So let's say you could build a magic machine, and this is where computer science came from and what Turing was interested in, Church and Gödel were interested in. So you could build a magic machine that you can put in your well-formed formula, and out it would spit true, false, or undecidable, meaning you don't have enough information in the system to be able to prove it. So David Hilbert, who was the guy that really got all this rolling, was absolutely convinced that you could do that. And what Turing did as a graduate student, which was quite remarkable, is that he showed you couldn't do that in general. And he did it by constructing something called a Turing machine. But in the process of doing that, he basically constructed the foundations of modern computer science, which is another remarkable thing. Although at the time he wasn't fully aware that of what he had done. And the other formulations of this also are alternative models of computation that are used, like lambda calculus is used with Haskell, for example. So there's a lot of magic there in these systems. And the people who study that are called logicians, kind of rhymes with magician, but it's called a logician, and set theorists. And there's been many, many famous logicians throughout the years, from Cantor and Gödel, and set theorists throughout the years. And most of them go crazy. Gödel went crazy. He starved to death because he thought people were poisoning his food. He was a paranoid schizophrenic. And Cantor also went crazy. So it's not good for your mental health to study these things, because you start thinking about things like the continuum hypothesis and so forth. Anyway, so if you're interested in that story, The Annotated Turing is a great story. What were we talking about? Did I hear a dog? How many dogs do you have? I've got 4 dogs. 2 big ones, 2 tiny ones. What is honeycomb? I think it's an Oracle solution that Ermergo is pushing. The Turing test is not for human stupidity. The Turing test is an imitation game. And it's just a game of, can you fool somebody better than a normal human can? Can you talk about Ricardian contracts? Yeah, it's Ian Grieg's thing. Ugh. You know, we never actually touched the Ada card. That was a Michael Parsons initiative, and that's why I got so fucked up in the beginning. Everything that guy touched was just a basket of nightmares. And they got a commitment, but it wasn't a contractual commitment. And then they announced it, and it was just mess, absolute mess. I'd like to do a debit card, and it'd be a nice thing to do. But the way that the foundation did it under the Parsons administration was not good. Thoughts on naive set theory? Misspelled, but very good book. It was written by Paul Halmos. It's one of the seminal works in set theory, and it's one of the best books that Paul had ever written. It's actually my favorite mathematical author. Him and Thomas Hungerford, both of them, have an enormous amount of clarity. Jordan Peterson's a good man. Opinions on the banning of Confederate flag and pulling down monuments. You know, I understand the cultural heritage, but I wasn't born in the South. I lived in the South. I lived in Virginia, and there's a lot of pride there for Dixie. Yeah, you got shows like Dukes of Hazzard, the General Lee, where it's on the car. It's part of their culture. But here's the thing: they were the enemies of the United States. They weren't the United States. They seceded from the Union. So why we should name U.S. military installations after them? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That would be like naming U.S. military bases after German generals or Japanese generals. When you fight the U.S. Army, you're by definition not an ally. You're not a contributor. I understand they were American citizens, but at the same time, they took an oath of office and they abandoned that and caused a war that killed 500,000 people. And yeah, there's states' rights. I can understand that component of it. But at the end of the day, the core of what they were fighting for was to preserve the institution of slavery. That's it. Yes, there needs to be a separation of power between the state's government and the federal government. But let's be clear here. The key issue that they were having a debate about was the long-term durability, survivability of slavery. Now, there are a lot of historians who feel that there perhaps were more negotiated ways where things could have been resolved, like they could just ban generational slavery, prevent the importation of it, and then gradually buy back the slaves and set them free. So there could have been a lot of ways to phase out that institution, as other countries did, without resulting in a civil war. But the Confederacy had no legitimacy. They lost the war. Not only that, after they lost the war because of Andrew Johnson and his evil and things that came after, the Ku Klux Klan formed with millions of members and brutally murdered hundreds of thousands of innocent Black people in the South and went on campaigns of terror, torture, and other horrible things, not just for a few years, but for decades and decades and decades and decades. So a lot of these monuments to the Confederacy were not constructed at the back end of the war. Grant and others would never have allowed that. And they were constructed during the 1950s and 60s and 40s during the Civil Rights Movement as a counter reaction to it. And then they're poorly built monuments for that matter. There are certainly historical figures that should be remembered, like General Lee and others. And whether we love them or hate them, they're part of the American story. And there's real value to having statues of not just great people, but statues of evil people or bad people or people who were tragically flawed, because it reminds you that you could become that person. And you're not so different from these people, whether you'd like to believe it or not. So I do despise the tearing down of monuments from the perspective of, well, that person was a bad person, so we can't honor them. No, you just change the story, but you leave the statue. And then you change, and then you can teach people about that. But if you tear them down, then you're applying unrealistic and unreasonable standards, and because standards will change. And here's the thing: in 100 years' time, vast majority of us today will all be unwashed masses who are racist, sexist, and homophobic. And when we have 900 genders and our digital avatars and people are marrying holograms and shit, and if we feel uncomfortable about that, well, our microaggressions and thoughts will immediately label us the other, and our monuments will be torn down too. So I think it's really preposterous to apply a contemporary standard to people who lived hundreds of years ago. They were just simply different times. The other thing is that a lot of these protesters, they don't even know what the hell they're doing. They're going around defacing statues of abolitionists. They say, oh, that's a statue to an old white dude. Must be a slaver. Meanwhile, the guy that they defaced got stabbed by slavers rescuing slaves on the Underground Railroad and bled to death. So the very group of people that they'd like to prop up as heroes, they're defacing the statue because they don't even know the damn history. It's pretty disgusting. No statues of Adolf in Germany or anywhere in Europe, though. Yeah, because it's illegal. The denazification campaign meant that you tore down all the stuff. And what they did is they dialed up the Frederick the Great, dialed down the Bismarck, and they kind of walked away from that whole historical period. But ignoring that does not serve a purpose. And there is a rise in right-wing extremism in Germany, especially in East Germany, because people don't know the past. Charles, there are rumors that circulating mainnet will launch immediately after the 2nd or 3rd. No, it's the 29th. You have to schedule these things because or else you'd lose liquidity on exchanges. 29th of July is when the hard fork occurs, and we're shipping the client either June 30th or July 7th. No, they actually did not deface the Lincoln Memorial. There were soldiers there. That's why they didn't deface it. They probably would have attempted to do that if given the chance. And nothing would have delegitimized their movement more than that. There's a reason why Martin Luther King spoke at that monument. Rogan after Gogan, Andres. Rogan after Gogan. Emergo is going to provide Spot 27 a whole list of updates at the Cardano Summit. They have equal standing with the Foundation and IOHK in the agenda, so there'll be a lot of stuff there. Charles, do you want a chainsaw tactical shotgun? Yeah. Gears of War all the way. Did you ever play RuneScape? No, I did not have the opportunity. Do you play chess? Yes. Colored coins. We solved that problem called native assets. We took what color coins wanted to do. We made it better. We wrote 2 papers on it. Peer reviewed. Eventually. Favorite chess player of all time? Nimzowitz. His whole strategy of prophylaxis is like over defense. Wrote all these, like the art of defense in chess. Brilliant guy. What is the worst top 10 coin? BSV by far. Doesn't need to be there. Doesn't deserve to be there. It's a cult. Dan Larimer thinks peer review is dumb. Yeah, because he never went through it and doesn't understand it. I mean, if he can't survive it, it would make sense why he doesn't want to do it. Come on, kids. Give me some good questions. Sexy questions. Happy questions. Coming up on an hour. I want to close it out in an hour, but I'd like a good question. Come on. You can do that. Have you trained in any martial arts? Yes. Tong Sudo and Taekwondo and Judo. Gonna get into Muay Thai and BBJ in a bit. I was actually gonna start, but then this coronavirus hit. All these things I was gonna do, coronavirus like killed it. I was also gonna start neural feedback training too. That's really cool stuff. Coronavirus, can't do it. Just got the corona. Lots and lots of corona. Does banana belong in a fruit salad? It depends on the person. Favorite world history book? Sapiens. My System. There we go. Yeah, from Nimzowitz. That was it. Yeah, not The Art of Defense, but My System. Alekhine was the one that wrote all the offensive books. Thoughts on Bruce Lee? Overrated. Come on, I was always a Chuck Norris fan. We all got to be. Getting into JavaScript programming now. Do you like pineapple on your pizza or not? You should buy Eloquent JavaScript if you're actually going to be a serious JavaScript programmer. It's a very good beginning book. It's in its second or third edition. And then after you read that, immediately go and learn TypeScript and just write TypeScript. Don't do JavaScript. You'll thank me for it. Have you ever been to Brazil? Yes. You know, Brazil was the only place I've ever been in my life where the women hit on me. I didn't hit on them. They came up to me on the beach and gave me their number. Brazil is a strange place, but a lovely place. Favorite Chuck Norris line. You know, Chuck Norris was once bitten by a cobra, and after 3 agonizing days of pain and misery, the cobra died. Are you sure they were women? Yep, verified that. Do you have beef with Trevon James? I saw a tweet at him. Look, the dude's lost all legitimacy after backing BitConnect. I'm sorry. That's like something you don't go back home from. You know, it's like that old saying. You know, you have an Irish guy at a bar. It's a good one. He's like, you know, when you build a bunch of bridges, they call you a bridge builder. You know, when you build a bunch of churches, they call you a church builder. You know, when you're a farmer and you have big, big fields and lots of crops, they call you a proper farmer. You can do all of those things, but you fuck one goat, and they're always going to call you a goat fucker. And that's where he's at. He got tempted by the goat. When will we see McCann's work? The Cardano.org refresh is the first artifact of that. It's beautiful. Most disgusting celebrity you ever met in person. Ooh, that one's interesting. Well, I once flew on a plane with Shia LaBeouf, and that was an interesting experience. Of course, we're going to get into some major beef if I tell the story, so I'm not telling the story. Are you a Freemason? No. What's wrong with object-oriented languages? I mean, if you like writing 10 times as much code with lower reliability, harder maintenance, difficult time explaining it, impedance mismatches with reality, harder debug time, substandard tooling for formal methods use, and of course, just the lack of elegance, well, then of course you can use Java or C++. It's all available to you. Yes, yeah. Yeah, you can use Liskov substitution principle and all these beautiful things. It's all there. There's like lots of theory, and you can hire a bunch of guys from India to do your QA for you. It'll be just great. You can do test-driven development, and it just works. Just works. Good luck. Come on, I'm looking for a good question to end on. Now, I didn't call him that. I'm just saying if you push BitConnect, that's what you did. It's of the same order of magnitude. Come on, what kind of an idiot pitches a business like that? It's obviously a Ponzi scheme. It's obviously a scam. It was just like they weren't even hiding it. They just were like, hey, 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 BitConnect. It's just like you were just hearing this thing. It's like, what is going on here, you people? Ah. Is Python a good language for blockchain? Well, Python's a good programming language in general. Got a lot of respect from Python. In fact, my chief of staff, she's right now actually taking a Python course. It's a great entry point to computer science. It's a great entry point to get into the greater nuances of artificial intelligence and data science as well. Highly recommended if you're a non-programmer to start there. Great pedagogy, good ecosystem, wonderful community, and you can do a lot of things really quickly that aren't half bad. What is with Wolfram has with blockchain? Wolfram Alpha is the #1 supplier of Oracle data in our entire industry. So if you want to know something about the world, you're probably going to pull it from Wolfram. Means he's a kingmaker in the Oracle world. Thanks for keeping it real, Charles. My people, always going to keep it real. Come on now, kids. You should look into BitConnect 2.0. There are more bonuses this time, and it all works. Ha! Your money first. Oh, that's great. Did you enjoy the last season of Westworld? I haven't seen it yet. I've been saving it. Season 3. I've actually stayed in an underground bunker, and I've prevented people from telling me anything about it. So I know nothing of season 3, but I will watch it. I promise you. I hear it's quite different from the last 2. Well, that's a good question to end it on. What do you think about AI lawyers? I think that is not only a good idea, I think it's a moral imperative. So here's our problem. We have too many lawyers, too many laws, and we have this incredibly immoral thing. We say the ignorance of the law is no excuse for not following the law. Okay. So imagine this. You are a poor person, okay? And you're first generation to go to college or get out of the ghetto, go to the military, or go do something and make enough money that you can actually move somewhere and have a real future. And then you start a business, and then you inadvertently break a regulation. Some guy comes by, puts you out of business. And they say, but I didn't know. They say, well, it doesn't matter. Ignorance of the law is no excuse for not following it. If you pass thousands and thousands and thousands of laws every year at the municipal, state, and federal level, it is fundamentally immoral and predatory upon the weakest amongst us to then tell them they have to follow them when they have no means of being able to know that, and the government is unwilling to provide them advice about it. Okay, so here's the thing. What you need to do is you need to create an AI lawyer, and you basically say, okay, we can have as many laws as we want, but until that lawyer is good enough so that when we ask it a question, it can give us a reasonable response like, is what I'm doing illegal? If the lawyer says, yes, it's legal, or no, it's illegal, then the government will give you that as an affirmative defense, even if it's wrong, and say, okay, well, we screwed up. You're off the hook. Because then, for free, society can actually get clarity and answers in the questions about what's legitimate, legal, what's not. It is fundamentally unfair that I have to hire a New York law firm and pay $600 an hour and fill a conference room of securities lawyers to get an "it depends" answer after 3 months. It's what we had to do with Ethereum. We spent $250,000 on that. It is just unbelievable to me that is the barrier to entry for certain fields for fintech. And then your answer is, it depends. Your answer is maybe, more likely than not, but we're not sure. Here's our qualification. And then you go to the government and you say, well, what's the answer? Is this legal or not? And they say, we're not your lawyer. Go find one. It's an immoral system. It needs to stop. And I seriously, seriously, seriously would love to see in a legal DSL form that is machine understandable and for our laws to be modeled. And the first thing we're going to find is that they're riddled. Remember, I was talking about formal systems, completeness and decidability and consistency. We're going to find that the law is not independent, contradictory, so inconsistent, not complete, a whole bunch of questions that are not covered by law, and you cannot actually decide on whether things are legal or illegal. So it's not a truly good formal system. And then we can have a nice big conversation with policymakers of, would you like a better legal system? And we'll build it. We'll build it in the poorest countries in the world. And because they have better rule of law and better gov tech, they will become the richest nations in the world. And then they will put all these formerly rich nations to shame. And just like all governments that are laden with bad systems and being outcompeted by those with good systems, if they don't adapt, they will die. And that's a good thing. And as the great radio announcer used to, I look forward to next week. Balance check is going to be great. And I do enjoy your questions. We're down to the wire now. Just a few weeks for the summit, a few weeks for the release of Shelley, and then that hard fork. August is going to be a hell of a month with all those blocks being made. You earned this. Thank you. Cheers.